Alright, UAP News here, and we're going to start a channel all about UFO information. Okay, so just recently released is this, I think probably the best unclassified UFO image available to date. This is the Calvine UFO image. It's been 32 years since it's been classified, and finally we get a glimpse of it today on Saturday, August 13th, 2022. So let's read what the Daily Mail has posted about this. Okay. So, revealed after 32 years, the most spectacular UFO photo ever captured, or the first glimpse of America's fabled top secret Aurora spy plane program. Ooh, juicy. Okay, so here's the image. Wow, beautiful. The photograph taken by two young chefs on August 4th, 1990, has been hidden from view for over 30 years. Unbelievable. Here's RAF officer Craig Lindsay shows a 30-year-old black and white photo of a UFO sighting described as one of the best in the world, which has finally been unearthed after being hidden by the British Ministry of Defense. Quote, I have been for waiting for someone to contact about this for more than 30 years, he said. Wow. Okay. So, on August 4th, 1990, two young men were working as chefs in a hotel Pitlochry, a beautiful highland in Perthshire, just outside of Jesus, I can't pronounce these. Just outside of Cairngorms National Park in Scotland. Sorry for my pronunciation. At 9 p.m., after a long day in a hot kitchen, they drove about 13 miles north along the A9 to Calvine. To Calvine, a spot on the edge of the Cairngorms for a walk on the hills. They hadn't gone far when they saw a huge, solid, diamond-shaped object about 100 feet long, hovering silently in the sky above them. Terrified, they hid in some bushes and looked up. Minutes later, they heard the scream of a jet aircraft going north. In 1990, RAF Lutchers in Fife had two squadrons of Tornado fighters on 24-hour standby to intercept Russian intruder aircraft. The jet came back and circled the thing before heading off on its original course, as if the pilot had seen the object too and had come back for a closer look. Eventually, the two men stuck their camera out from where they were hiding and fired off 6 frames. At that point, the object shot vertically upwards and disappeared way up in the sky. Convinced they had just seen a UFO, they took their photos to the Daily Record, one of Scotland's leading newspapers, but no story was ever printed. I wonder why. The paper passed the pictures on to the Ministry of Defense. And then the photographers simply vanished, along with the two young chefs. The photographs. Until now, here for the first time we can reveal that missing picture. A photograph one Ministry of Defense insider described as the most spectacular UFO picture ever captured, and the holy grail in terms of hard evidence that these things really exist. It's a picture that the Military of Defense and the National Archives have tried their utmost to keep hidden. While the information would normally have been released after 30 years, the ministry has not released the original photo and wants the names of the witnesses sealed for a further 54 years, until 2076, because of privacy concerns. Look at that. Look at that. That's an actual photo of an actual spacecraft. Unbelievable. We're in some crazy times. Alright, so as a university lecturer and investigative reporter who spent 3 decades immersed in the world of ufology, I heard the story of the mysterious Calvine file, as the missing photo and report of that incident of Calvin came to be known many moons ago, and have devoted the past 13 years doggedly searching for the images the men took. What happened to that file, the men who pictured the UFO, and how and why its very existence has been suppressed for 32 years, was a puzzle I was determined to crack. Wherever I searched for answers, however, I found insiders blocking my inquiries, until I struck lucky and found retired RAF officer Craig Lindsay, the first official to speak to one of the young chefs after that night. He was willing to talk to me, and most exciting of all, I discovered that he'd broken protocol that day and stashed a copy of the image before, on Whitehall's orders, sending the entire dossier, negatives included, to the Ministry of Defense in London. He'd kept the secret copy in his desk for 32 years, hidden inside his copy of the great aircraft of the world. When I eventually tracked him down, now 83 and still living in Scotland, he sounded almost relieved. I had been waiting for someone to contact about this for more than 30 years. Wow. What a beautiful story. So what do I make of it? The moment Craig showed the photograph to me, I knew I was looking at something exceptional. Yes, it is a black and white image printed on color paper, and the trees and fence look a little blurry, as if the photographer took in a moment of panic, which is consistent with their story. But the camera is focused on the weird diamond-shaped object in the center of the frame. Unlike many other UFO images, this is clearly a structured craft of unknown origin. It looks otherworldly and unlike any conventional aircraft. And it is by far the best UFO photograph I have ever seen. Believe me, I am no gullible, deluded conspiracy theorist. I'd grown cynical after viewing hundreds of unconvincing photographs and films. Blurry, grainy, out-of-focus shots of what easily could have been frisbees, street lamps, or even seagulls. But this was clearly something different. I've since had it analyzed by Andrew Robinson, a senior lecturer in photography at Sheffield Hallam University. He is convinced it is genuine, and if it is a hoax, then a highly elaborate one, involving expensive, sophisticated equipment and flying models, not at the disposal of the two hotel chefs. He told me, my conclusion is that the object is definitely in front of the camera, that it's not a fake produced in post-production, and its placement within the scene appears to be approximately halfway between the foreground fence and the plane in the background. Mr. Lindsay, a pragmatic, logical former civil servant who spent 10 years in the military, is convinced the image and the frightened man who he spoke to on that day are genuine. Initially, he was worried about speaking to me in case he was in breach of official Secrets Act, but after 32 years of doing what he was told and kept quiet, he now wants the truth to emerge. As a press officer for Scotland, I dealt with many UFO reports, but most were just of lights in the sky. It was obvious that this one was different. When I asked what sort of noise it made, the man said it didn't make any noise at all. Up to that point, I wasn't treating it very seriously, but when he said it was silent, I suddenly realized there is no aircraft that I know of that is silent. Lindsay arranged for the negatives the men handed to the Daily Record to be collected and faxed, and a faxed copy of the best print of the Ministry of Defense's now defunct UFO desk in London. Before I could even get back to my desk, the phone was ringing and my contact said, "Tell me more about this. Can you get negatives?" So the story keeps on going. So pretty much, being part of the UFO community, we've been waiting for real good proof to be shown, leaked, dropped, something that's official, that no one can deny, that proves the existence of these spacecraft. It looks like this is the first one. I don't know if you guys are aware, but things are changing. Things are changing fast in the Senate and in the government. Laws are being made for under these UAP, under this new UAP world that we live in. I guess I can put it like that. Although we've been seeing these UFOs for over 70 years, and it goes back even longer than that, um, it's just now that the government's coming out and and admitting to really, you know, really believing in it, and that knowing that, acknowledging that this stuff is true. We live in crazy times. I can only imagine what will happen in my lifetime. Okay, let's see. Let's keep on reading here. So when he visited the Ministry of Defense later that year, however, he saw the Calvine photo blown up to a poster size on the UFO office wall. I asked how they were getting on. They said it was being investigated. I was told to leave it to London. They asked me not to get involved, so I had done exactly that. The years passed, and gradually I just forgot about the print of in my drawer. Now I hope the two witnesses will come forward and tell their own stories. I hope so too. My interest in UFO sightings started in the 90s. Excuse me. When working as a journalist in Yorkshire, I began using the Freedom of Information Act to request access to MOD files on famous UFO sightings such as the Rendlesham Forest incident that is often called Britain's Roswell. If you guys don't know about the Rendlesham Forest, it was a downed UFO craft approached by military officers. They saw the craft. They actually touched the craft, and there was consequences to those actions. If you don't know about it, I would highly recommend to do some research on that case and many others at that. In 2008, shortly before the MOD disbanded their UFO desk, I had become such an authority on the MOD files that I was offered the opportunity to curate the release of thousands of once secret UFO papers at the National Archives. In here, among the hundreds of drawings from school children and letters from UFO conspiracy theorists demanding to know where the aliens were being kept, I found a poor quality photocopied drawing of a UFO with a Harrier beside it. Yet even more intriguingly, alongside the image, there was a briefing prepared for the defense ministers in Margaret Thatcher's government of the time if they were approached to comment on the sighting. The wording was vague and non-committal. The typical swatting away investigators are used. Under the subheading "Defensive Lines to Take" is the official response the MOD should give if asked. Have looked have looked at the photographs. No definite conclusions reached regarding large diamond-shaped objects. Confident that jet aircraft is a Harrier. Have no record of Harriers operating in locations at stated time and date. No other reports received by the MOD of unusual air activities at this time and location and date. I checked, but of course no one did ask. The story was immediately shelved. I went looking for more. Although the sparse MOD papers on the Calvine sighting were declassified, the names of the photographer were removed from the file under data protection laws. Normally, these would have been released after 30 years on January 1st, 2020, but the MOD and the National Archives continue to insist they must be kept secret for another 54 years until 2076. No way. Absolutely not. No way. Just no, that's unbelievable. Even the Daily Record's decision not to publish the story is intriguing. Had it been spiked by a D notice, a gagging order based on national security concerns served by the MOD. While this might sound like something from TV's X-Files, some clever sleuthing by my fellow ufologist Matthew Ilsey discovered that the record's editor, the late Endell Laird, had been a member of the MOD's D-Notice committee at the time. A coincidence? Matthew from Mansfield in Nottinghamshire is challenging the extended closure decision that he says is unjustified, asking, what have they got to hide for all these years? Yeah, well, what could be hidden for 54 years, long after they would be dead? So what was it? Sadly, I do not think that mysterious aircraft arriving from another galaxy. I believe it was a man-made, somewhere in secret hangar, and whatever it was remains on the secret list and highly sensitive. Okay, that might make sense. If we created our own UFO aircraft, either with back engineering or just with our own knowledge, that would probably be the most classified, even higher classified than actual alien craft. Because, see, what the government would do is they would pretend first, if disclosure were to happen, they would pretend like they would say, okay, yeah, these craft are real. They're occupied by some habitants, but they're extremely advanced and they're too advanced for us to understand. I don't believe that. I believe the government has these craft either from a crash landing or from purposeful attacks against these UFOs, or not on purpose. Either way, you know, I believe the military has back engineered these craft and have been testing it, and it's probably the most classified subject. Back engineered aerial reproduction vehicles, the most classified subject possible in the military. That's my assumption. So okay, so sadly, I do not think that mysterious aircraft arrived from a galaxy. I believe it was a man-made somewhere. Okay. The witnesses had simply been in that million to one chance of being in that particular place at that particular time and needed to shut up. Remember, this was 1990. A Cold War was still a year away from thawing. The Gulf War started literally days earlier. The world was, as many would argue, it is still today, divided along them and us battle lines. Since the mid 80s, there have been rumors of a top secret exotic American reconnaissance aircraft named Aurora, a silent, supersonic, geometrically shaped craft used for spy missions. Although there has never been any substantial evidence that this was ever built or flown, there have been numerous unexplained sightings and incidents in both the US and UK over the years that have fueled the Aurora myth, Calvine included. In 1991, the defense ministers denied in Parliament that the U.S. had been given permission to fly or land their secret spy plane in UK airspace after reports that Aurora had been spotted leaving RAF Ma- uh, Match Matrihanish on the Mull of Kintyre. I really do apologize, guys, with my UK or European pronunciations of these locations. I'm very bad with it. Okay, so we're at the end of the article here from the Daily Mail. Let's finish it up for you guys. But papers I have obtained using the Freedom of Information Act suggest that some MOD intelligence officers did believe Aurora existed, but were not allowed to say anything publicly. A source in the MOD tells me that once Britain's intelligence chiefs realized the Calvine photograph showed a top secret US project, they were immediately classified secret UK eyes only. Last June, the Pentagon released its long-awaited report on what it now calls UAPs, or unidentified aerial phenomena, after a spate of similar sightings and the release of films showing fast-moving UFOs taken by U.S. Navy pilots. The new American UAP task force listed 5 categories that most sightings when resolved, would likely fall into. And one of these is classified programs developed by the U.S. government. Wow, shocker. I'm convinced that the Calvine photograph shows one of these classified programs. Meanwhile, the American and possibly our own government have found it useful to keep the myth of UFOs flying because it provides a useful cover for their own covert military activities. And that's a fact. But in this case, their covers were blown by 2 young men who were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or you could say they were at the right place at the right time. The MOD must explain to the public why, if there are no such things as UFOs, how they can justify keeping their identities secret for a further 54 years. Yeah. If UFOs don't exist, if that's not a thing, if UFOs aren't real, why are you insisting to keep it so top secret? It also needs to explain what happened to the negatives and their file on the case. Otherwise, they are simply adding further grist to the mill of the conspiracy theorists who believe the authorities are hiding the truth about visits to Earth by aliens. The pictures surely cannot be said to damage state interests. I remain open-minded about the possibility that intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe, but I remain unconvinced that it has ever visited Earth. The Calvine photograph is, in my opinion, the best image showing an unidentified flying object ever taken by Dr. J. Allen Hynek, consulted to the Euros. Someone said, unidentified to whom? Okay, so that was this. That was the report. Basically, things are happening. Images are being released. Information is being dropped, leaked, whatever you want to say. The government's, specifically the U.S. government, is being pushed to have this disclosure. It looks like it's time. No more nonsense. No more waiting. No more. It's time to bring the truth out. It's time to bring the knowledge out. People are ready. People have been waiting. Nothing will change. Religions won't change. Schools won't change. Governments won't change. Although they all need to change. Nothing will be messed up or go in chaos like they used to say. This is 2022. We are ready for the real news, the real information. UAP news. You read it here. You heard it here. Thank you for watching. This is my new YouTube channel I'd like to start working on, as I'm heavily into the UAP topic and I've done heavy research on it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry for my pronunciation again. Take care.